Hello, everyone. Welcome. I hope you're all having a good day. Thank you for taking the time to join us. I'm Katie Quinn. I'm an audio reporter at Missouri Business Alert, and I will be your host for today's discussion. For those of you who are new to Missouri Business Alert, we are a digital publication that provides top business news from across the state. We also host events like this one as a resource for the state's business community. In today's conversation, we will cover how people who were formerly incarcerated can start a business, the barriers they face, and why entrepreneurship within marginalized communities is important. Throughout today's conversation, we want to hear from you. If you have any questions, please leave them below in the chat of this Facebook Live. We will be watching the chat and we'll have time to get those questions answered later in the conversation. I'm joined today by Chuck Doyle and Kyle J. Benson Smith. Chuck is the co-owner of Luminous Technologies, an electrical and lighting company in the Kansas City area. He is also the founder of investment group, the American Mastermind Investment Club. He's also the host and author of a podcast and blog column called The First Cup KC. Kyle works with a community of formerly incarcerated entrepreneurs with service-based businesses and supports them on their re-entry into society and entrepreneurial journeys through his company, Determination Incorporated. Chuck and Kyle, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So I'd like to start with some context, and Chuck, we'll start with you. What does entrepreneurship offer people who were formerly incarcerated?
Well, I would say it offers us an opportunity to re-enter into society and actually provide a service. You know, a lot of us don't understand that we can't live our life without making money and like working a job. So that's actually providing a service. Sometimes it's hard getting out of prison and coming out with that rap sheet on you. Hey, this guy's a felon. You know, do you want him working around your own business? So sometimes it's just as easy just to get out and try to go at it alone, you know, and start your own business. So
Absolutely. And let's say there is someone who is re-entering society and would like to start a business. Kyle, what do you think is the first step?
Yeah, well, whenever at Determination Incorporated, our nonprofit, we do workshops inside of prisons and we do workshops for people who are recently released as well. And in those workshops, we share our strong foundation pyramid. And so it's kind of like a reworking of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And on the bottom of it, the first spot is the first layer is place. So having a place where you're staying, that is important for people to feel safe, for people to have a good foundation for their business, and for people to have stability in their own life. Above that is patience, and patience includes having a paycheck, being able to pay the bills, and having a job is often a requirement of parole as well. Having presence of mind, being able to stay calm, being whole, being grounded. And then above that is people. And people is having a place where you feel like you belong. And that doesn't necessarily mean that your first group of people is a networking event. It could be a church group. It could be a family group. I play pickleball and a little frisbee golf. It could be a community like that, just somewhere where you feel like you can be yourself and you're authentically accepted by others. Above people is power. And by power, we mean the ability to get something done, and to set goals and achieve those goals. And then above that is your purpose. And this is where, once you have that strong foundation in your pyramid, you can start working toward those higher level goals, like reaching your business. So you asked for one step, Katie, and I gave you a whole pyramid. I know that's more than you asked for, but we don't want to pretend like starting a business is easy. We don't want to pretend like there's any magic wand for entrepreneurship. It's always a little bit of everything.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, Chuck, what barriers do you think formerly incarcerated people face as entrepreneurs?
Well, first of all, you got the rap. You got the rap sheet on you. So who wants to give you a chance, basically? Someone has to want to see you make it. You got financial barriers. And my biggest thing with a lot of us is the belief barrier. Can you do it? Are you able to do it? I mean, you failed so many times at your life at this point that you just feel like it'll just be a detrimental fail. So, one of the biggest barriers to starting a business would be to actually know if you really believe that you can actually achieve, being an entrepreneur. And it's like Kyle said earlier, it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, it's easy to do anything, but to maintain it, So yeah, you got to have the belief, but financial barriers is another one. That's a real big one. Where's the money going to come from? Are you going to be able to support the business during your beginning stages or during a hiccup during the business? So many other barriers that we can talk about, but the two that really stands out the most would be your financial barrier and the barrier of if you believe that you can do it.
And Chuck, how has your background being informally incarcerated helped your business ventures?
So, you know how they say everybody goes through things, and I'm gonna just say it like this: a butterfly is one of the biggest symbols of change. It is. It goes through 4 different stages of life, and some of those stages are not pretty. And me going through, I had a really, really, really rough life, and it. One thing I can say is it's made me resilient. Being able to go through so much and being able to overcome it is, I would say, is, man, I've come a long way. I can tell you that much. And going through the prison system, coming out and starting your own business and maintaining it, it does give you a very high sense of pride that you could accomplish a lot. So I'm
Kyle,
trying to keep my questions. I'm trying to keep my answers a little short because I don't want to run out of time, and I know you got a lot of stuff to cover. So,
I definitely do. And, going to Kyle, why do you think businesses with formerly incarcerated founders is important?
Yeah, we know that people who are on parole in Missouri, of people who are on parole, 46% are unemployed. And that one of the biggest factors leading to recidivism or people going back to prison is poverty, is not having financial opportunity. So any door that we can open to help people find financial opportunity, to help people find economic stability is worthwhile, because that's going to help them stay on the straight and narrow, stay out of prison, become taxpayers, provide for themselves, for their family, and give back to the community. So entrepreneurship is not everyone's path by any means. Data from the Kauffman Foundation, way broader than just formerly incarcerated people, says 3 out of 1,000 people are going to go into entrepreneurship. So it's not a path for everyone. Plenty of people find opportunity and stability after prison through a career or through a job. But for those who do decide to pursue entrepreneurship, I think it's important that we support those goals, because entrepreneurship really is about learning on your feet. And unless you're part of a community, unless you know about the resources that are out there, you're going to feel like you're all alone. And so that's why we focus on building our community and having a place where people can reach out to.
And Chuck, do you have anything you would like to add about why you think formerly incarcerated founders are important?
well, because I am a formerly incarcerated founder, you need a lot of people look at me and they believe more. You know, when you have somebody that's actually leading the way, it makes it easier to believe that it's obtainable. So having those founders that are, who have went through what you're going through, man, that's, and I have a couple of friends of mine that are, that did do a lot of time, that did get out and get their life together and start their little businesses, and those little businesses turn into, more than one business. So yeah, just being able to see someone who's done it before is enough. It helps out.
We have a question from our audience here, and Chuck, this might go to you first. Is it harder for folks who were just as involved to find funding for new ideas or businesses?
Say that again.
Is it harder for people who were formerly incarcerated to find funding for their business?
Um, there's a lot of programs out there. There's a lot of programs, a lot of steps, and a lot of stages. So what I did in the beginning is I went to the SCORE program, and the SCORE, it's score.org, and they gave me a mentor. And sometimes you just don't know where to go to find the money. So you have to reach out to certain resources that are able to give you direction. Determination Inc. They meet, what is it, every second and fourth Thursday of the month. During those sessions, they have a lot of resources that come on the site, like a couple of months, what was it, 2 months ago? The Small Business Association, they had a couple of people on there talking about. So there are so many resources out there. You just have to get out there and look. The first steps is to get out there and if you want something, you're going to go searching for it. So, and then, like I said, just reach out to any community resource that you have wherever you're at, and see, look into it.
Yeah, Kyle, your business is a resource for community members. I would love if you could just talk about, how do you think people should find funding?
Katie, I was trying to share the video on Facebook and my audio cut out for a second. Do you mind repeating your question? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. No problem. We were just talking about funding, and as your
Yes,
organization
yes.
is a resource, how do you recommend people look for funding?
Yeah, so here in Kansas City and elsewhere in the state as well, there are opportunities for small business loans. A lot of times when people think about getting a loan for their business, they think about a bank. And obviously a bank does provide loans, but a bank loan is not something that most startup businesses and most small-time entrepreneurs are ready for. But there's another type of organization called a CDFI, a Community Development Financial Institution, that offers loans to entrepreneurs and business owners who aren't ready for bank loans. And here in Kansas City, those organizations include AltCap, Justine Peterson, which is also in St. Louis, Holy Rosary Credit Union, and folks who are interested in getting loans should start by looking at what opportunities those have available and what financial products that they have. I don't see it necessarily as a direct obstacle of having a criminal record that is stopping people from getting those loans, but other barriers to getting a loan may exist. So having a good credit score, having collateral, having a full business plan, these sorts of things may be certain aspects that folks need to work on before they're able to get a loan. Of course, another opportunity for getting money for your business is grants. Grant competitions come around sometimes, but they are highly competitive because obviously everyone is putting their name in the hat for free money. So by no means is that a guaranteed thing. And in all of our workshops, we share with people that whether or not you've been to prison or not, starting a business usually comes from personal financing or the support of friends and family. And so just building up the habit of saving money to put toward your business is crucial as well. I'll talk a little bit longer on this one because it's such an important factor. We often share the story in our workshops inside of prisons. One of our board members, Ron, when he got home from prison, he was in federal prison for 7 years. Whenever he got home, he knew that he wanted to start his business. But the first thing that he did was he set up his business bank account and he got a job. And every time he got a paycheck from his job, he wrote his business a $200 check and put it in his business bank account so that a few years in, he had some money built up that he could then put toward his business. So that's one example of how people save money to put toward their business goals.
Thank you for that example. And for this next question, I would love both of your perspectives. And Chuck, we'll start with you. What skills do you think are important when becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, first of all, you gotta have patience because it's not easy. You're gonna go through some ups and downs. And you gotta you definitely have to have professionalism. It's hard, especially coming from a hood environment sometimes, or even any kind of criminal environment to have an appeal. Me personally, I worked my butt off, and sometimes it just requires just to consistently, stay in with what you're doing. Yeah.
And Kyle, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think having a growth mindset, always, always, always be learning, always, always, always be listening, being very aware of what's going on around you and trying to learn from every situation that you're in, and just believing that you can constantly be evolving. None of us are a finished product. We're all out here learning every single day and doing our best and sometimes failing and falling short. But it's important that when that happens, that we're able to pick ourselves back up, that we have the support of friends and family who can help us through that, and that we grow wiser from each of those instances. Because entrepreneurship is going to teach you a lot of lessons. And unfortunately, you don't get them all the easy way. You're not going to get every answer out of a book. You're not going to get every answer from a mentor or a podcast. Some of the lessons you got to learn on your feet. And whenever you learn those lessons, it's important that you're able to absorb them so that next time you can do something better and different and hopefully avoid making the same mistake twice.
I want to remind everyone watching that if you have any questions for Kyle and Chuck, to please leave them in the comments below. And going back to that lessons part, right? Chuck, what's a lesson you've learned since starting your company or all the companies you've started?
Okay, so it's got to go back to the belief part. It really does. And I'm gonna tell you a story real quick. So before I started my business, it was just an idea, and I had a plan. That's the biggest thing you do have to do. You have to plan. You got to plan it. And I had a plan, and I just started talking to people about it. Well, it got around town and it got back to my boss. And my boss heard that I was thinking about starting my own business. So he approached me at one of the job sites that I was working on, and he asked me about that. And I didn't want to lie to him, and I didn't want to tell him the truth. So I actually told him, hey, look, I get what you're saying, but it's going to require money, which I really don't have. It's going to require, credit, a clean record, and I'm a felon, I'm African American. I got a lot of stuff going against me, boss. So I don't know, you tell me. And the man looked out his front window of his car that he was still sitting in, and he looked back at me and just told me to get back to work and don't worry about it. Well, when he drove off, Katie, I stood there in the middle of the street, and it dawned on me that I had just told myself all of the reasons that was stopping me from going forward with starting my own business. And I knew right then at that moment, that I was the one that was creating that problem. And I just decided from that point that I would not allow any of those barriers to stop me from starting my business. And 4 months later, just after 4 months later, I was starting my business. So you just got to believe.
I love that you guys are both talking about belief mindsets. Kyle, could you speak to having a service-based company versus one that's project-based? What are the pros and cons there?
Sure. With one of the reasons that we
I think
focus,
you're muted.
I can hear him.
can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can hear you too, Katie.
Apologies. Some technical difficulties. Oh, okay. Everybody else can hear except me. So continue on, Kyle, and I will figure it out on my end. What are the pros and cons to having a service-based company versus one that's product-based?
Yeah. Katie, I promise, even though you can't hear me, that my answer is going to be very excellent. We help people specifically start service-based businesses because it is a type of business that you can start with less capital than a product-based business. So with a service-based business, like if you're painting or plumbing or doing electrician work, like Chuck does, as long as you have the tools to get started, you can go find your first customer, bid on that project. If and when you get the project, complete the project, and then use that money to invest in your next project and just start building it up from there. So it has fewer barrier to entries than starting a product-based business, which has a lot more money up front. In order to develop the product and then get it on the market and then hopefully find customers. No matter what sort of business anyone is starting, you always want to start out by testing your idea and starting to get the word out and starting to try things without diving all the way in and saying, well, I hope this works. When we share our 11 tips for starting a business after prison in our in prison workshops, the very last tip is, after you've built a strong foundation for your business and done all of these things, start testing out your business idea on nights and weekends, one customer at a time. Don't leave your day job right away and just hope that it works out. Start building up your customer base, start building up your reputation and your ability to develop and deliver a quality service. And then once you decide, okay, this is going somewhere and I really want to give it a shot and I believe in myself, then you have some revenue built up that you can have momentum to run with. And so that's why we focus on service-based businesses primarily.
Absolutely. And we have another question from the audience. And Chuck, I'm going to give it to you first. And Kyle, if you have any other recommendations, you can, of course, add on. Are there any programs or readings that people could be doing during their incarceration to better prepare themselves for entrepreneurial opportunities once they're released?
You got to get yourself educated. You are in the place right now, if whoever's in jail, they're in a place where they are alone. They are by themselves. They have no distraction. They can literally read. And that was one of the things that I did. Matter of fact, reading in prison does two things. It not only occupies your mind, it also gives you an escape out of the prison that you're in, because you can create the world wherever you're at. You can create the world that you want to be in through the books you read. Now, when I was incarcerated, I didn't choose to read novels of romances and hitman and all of that. I didn't read that. I read educating. I read everything that I could read that was educating. Books like Think and Grow Rich and The Laws of Human Nature, and just so many books. Eat That Frog. And I mean, reading books is going to give you a mindset. It's going to set your mindset. If you're reading positive material, if you're reading material that will give you some sort of value, you will be added. It will add to you. So that's the biggest thing that they can do, because only when you're reading, you give yourself the control. Even if there's courses and classes that you can take while you're in prison, those courses and classes have times that you can attend them. But if you get the right material into your atmosphere, you can always have constant access to it. So, yeah.
Kyle, is there any other recommendations that you have?
I totally agree about reading and learning and absorbing. We have a blog post on our website, 10 business books to get your ideas off the ground. I won't list all of them, but a few of them that I do want to be sure and mention. One is called The E-Myth Revisited. It's a very popular book in entrepreneurship that does a great job of talking about you're a great tradesperson, you're a good employee. Does that necessarily mean that you have the skills to be a business owner? And it's a great way to self-reflect on where you're at and where you need to grow. Who Owns the Ice House is another book. There's actually courses built around this book on the entrepreneurial mindset, which is definitely worth reading about because there are some areas with the entrepreneurial mindset that may come naturally to you, but there may be other areas where understanding them as a concept and also working on those areas will help you to develop. And then one other book that I want to be sure and mention, we actually studied this book in our Be the Boss business support group here in Kansas City, is a book called Good to Great by an author named Jim Collins. And that is a very highly respected book in business, and it's used by big businesses. And it's also really helpful for if you're thinking about starting a new business, because it has some concepts in there that really help expand your mind from what's just a hustle, what's a way to make money versus what's a business, what is a generating, self-repeating system that will help you continue to make money and hopefully make more money over time. And Good to Great is a great book to learn about those sorts of things.
And for our last question, and we'll have to keep it short because we're running out of time, Chuck, what is one thing people should take away from today's conversation?
The biggest thing is that it's not over. You think it's over. Uh, you made your mistakes. Just learn from those mistakes, get back out there and try to be better than the person you were yesterday.
Well, thank you so much. That is all the time we have for today. Kyle and Chuck, again, thank you for joining me. And thank you so much to everyone at home for tuning in as well. If you want to keep up with everything else Missouri Business Alert is doing, you can check out our daily email newsletter, The Morning Minutes. It delivers the day's top business news from across Missouri. You can subscribe for free at MissouriBusinessAlert.com/subscribe. You can also keep up with us on our website, MissouriBusinessAlert.com. Thank you everyone for being here and have a great rest of your week.